Good morning, everybody. I am Ann Mendoza. I am the founder of Angel Moms and Angel Families, and I am your guest host today because Sandra and Walter are down at the border with Ron DeSantis today, and happy to fill in for them. So bear with me. I have not hosted a big podcast like this before, so I am going to try and do my best. Wanted to start out today. I know that a lot of talk goes on about Texas politics on Texas Fully Loaded, obviously. And I am here in Arizona, and I ran for Arizona State Representative in 2022, and the debacle here in Maricopa County. You know, we don't know if we won or lost. Really, is basically the consensus of that election. Running again in 2024, hopefully going to be able to step up and make a difference here in Maricopa County. But we have a big problem with illegal immigration here in Arizona, obviously the same as you do there in Texas. And the fentanyl is more of a problem here in Arizona. We do have border crossers down in the Yuma area. And it's interesting to note that recently the majority of the illegal crossers there in the Yuma area have been coming from Africa. And I know that when I was down there and visited different times, Romania was a big country that was coming across there in the Yuma area, Poland, even Ukraine, Russia. So it's a pretty interesting mixture of people from all over the world. And, you know, listening to Ron DeSantis just a few minutes ago before I started the show, it is not the way, you know, claiming asylum in our country is supposed to go. When you leave the country that you're fearing for your life from, and you enter a country on your way out, and the first one that you enter that you feel safe enough, that is where you're supposed to claim asylum. So it's pretty interesting that these people are coming from Russia, from Africa. How many countries are these people going through in order to arrive at the border of the United States? That is what is such a tragic misuse of our asylum claim and, you know, the goodness of the hearts of American people. But, you know, I have had the honor and really also the tragedy of meeting many, many angel moms and dads and angel brothers, sisters, children of the victims of illegal immigration here in the United States. For those of you who don't know, my son, Sergeant Brandon Mendoza of the Mesa, Arizona Police Force, was killed on May 12th, 2014, when a wrong way driver, he had driven over 35 miles the wrong way on 4 different freeways in the HOV lane, and ultimately ended up slamming head on into my son going 104 miles an hour. And he was an illegal who had been charged with crimes up in Colorado and basically just given a slap on the wrist when he finally was apprehended, because he never showed up for his court date and was traveling back and forth to Mexico. And he was finally caught coming across the border back home, back in the United States, taken back up to Adams County, Colorado, and given a slap on the wrist. So, and ultimately ended up here in Arizona and killed my son. 3 times legal limit drunk, high on meth. These people don't care. It's a different culture. And that is the sad reality of all of these people coming here in mass the way that they're doing. They don't understand the culture here. And so they bring their culture with them and their laws and how they're used to living their lives. And in a lot of these countries, these people drink and drive and have sex with children who are, you know, 12, 13, 14 years old. Things just aren't the same here in the United States for these people who show up here. And they think they're just coming for work, but the tragedies that they cause and the destruction in their wake for some families here in the United States is, you know, it's lasting. It has always amazed me of how large and huge the loss of my son has been. I've got 3 other children, and Brandon was my 3rd child. And he held this family together in a way that, I don't know, my other children are all equally amazing, but Brandon just had a knack for bringing us together. Or if we hadn't seen each other for a while, calling for a barbecue. So that is missed a lot, not only by me, but by his siblings. I've got many other families that I have helped and reached out to and talked to through my tragedy. And one story I want to tell you about, Dustin Inman, a beautiful young boy, and his mom and dad and their dog were going on a Saturday for a fishing trip in Georgia, and an illegal slammed into the back of their pickup, killing Dustin, killing the family dog, leaving Kathy, his mother, in a coma, and his father was injured, and so he was in the hospital also, but not as critically as Kathy was injured. So Kathy was in the hospital, still in a coma, was unable to attend her son's funeral. And when she got out of the hospital, Billy was her sole caretaker. Kathy was really disabled from that point on in her life. And within a few years was put into a wheelchair. And that's how she lived her life after this tragic accident. Billy was the sole provider for not only her health, her personal care, but also for providing for the family. And I went and visited them in Georgia and saw firsthand what was going on, and realized that there was a need for these people to have help, like to have handicapped, facilities and things put into the home to help the care of Kathy be easier for Billy and to make life easier for Kathy. So I made that a promise to them that we would be back the following year and do some remodeling of their home. And so I did a fundraiser through Angel Families and Angel Moms. We raised about $5,000. And my friend Frank went with me. He owns a remodeling company, took time out of his life and went with me over there to Georgia. And we ripped out 2 bathrooms and made it into one large bathroom, made a huge handicap shower for Kathy. But the sad thing is, okay, so let me back up a little bit. 6 months after we had been there and had this conversation with Billy and Kathy that we were going to be back to do this remodel, Billy died of a heart attack. He had taken Kathy to the bathroom, was sitting in the recliner in their living room waiting for her to say she was ready to be taken out of the bathroom. And he died of a heart attack in the recliner. And Kathy was just stuck there in the bathroom, ended up falling off the toilet, and was there. I guess it was in the evening when they were getting ready for bed, because the morning they had some part-time help come. When Billy went to work, a woman would come and stay there with Kathy while he was gone to work, found them both. And so there Kathy was now burying her husband and having to attend another funeral. And I went back there to spend some time with her and promised her I'd be back. Well, we were back there 6 months later and got this job done for her. And I was just really astounded at the non-help that not only her local government or charity showed for this woman, but that the federal government had no interest in helping this family out whatsoever. And it really irks me to this day when I see that everything free given to illegals. They cross our border, they're given a cell phone, they're given a gift card with some money on it. All these NGOs are bending over backwards to help them, of course, because the federal grants that they're receiving, these NGOs, of course, are enriching these people at the NGOs. So it's really not about human compassion in the right way. I don't think it's all about greed, but just seeing all of these resources going to these illegals who cross our border. This is why it irritates me so bad, because I see the tragedies of American families whose children and family members have had their dreams stolen from them because of an illegal criminal in our country. So now we're about 3 years past the point that Billy died, and a year and a half later, 2 years later, Kathy died. from the complications from the injuries she received in the accident. So a whole family wiped out. I mean, Billy had a heart attack, and I really contributed that to the fact of the stress that he endured, not only working his tail off to provide for his family and to pay for the help for the care of his wife for the few hours that he worked every day. Basically, he was working every day to pay for care while he was working. And and then caring for his wife too. I mean, having to lift her out of the wheelchair to go to the restroom, making, in and out of their vehicle everywhere they went. The stress on his body was unbelievable. I was amazed at what an incredible man this was, who stood by his wife's side and took care of her. That's just one tragic story. And we got very, very involved with this family because I knew that they needed our help. And that was in Georgia. It's not a border state. And these crimes spread all over the country. I just want to tell you about a few people who I've met. We've got Bonnie Eagle. Bonnie and her husband live up in Michigan, and their son, Chris, was a park ranger in Oregon Pipe National Park in southern Arizona, and he was killed by an illegal criminal who came through the park, and that was on August 9th of 2002. You've got Arlene Cohen and Marla Wolf. Arlene Cohen's son, Sander, stopped on the side of the road to help a guy who had a flat tire, and that guy happened to be Carlos Wolf, the wife or the husband of Marla Wolf, and he was an FBI agent. And Sander, Arlene's son, was a fire marshal, and he stopped on the side of the road in Maryland to help Carlos change a tire, and an illegal criminal just slammed into the two of them on the side of the road, killing them both. That was on December 6, 2017. Kathy Hall, she lives in Colorado now. Her daughter, Haley King, was killed in Arkansas on November 6, 2016 by an illegal criminal who hit the back of the motorcycle she was riding on. The driver of the motorcycle lost both of his legs, and her daughter was killed. And these families, it's amazing speaking to them how little compassion our government has for any of these families. And when you stop and think about, people who have crossed, illegals who have crossed, brought children across, they've gotten sick along the way, and they end up in the hospital, and these children die in the hospital because of illnesses and injuries and things that have happened to them along the way coming from the country that they originated from. And our government bends over backwards to accommodate these people and give them money and shut them up. And these people are allowed to sue our federal government. Mind you, angel families were not allowed to sue the federal government. And so we just have to hope and pray that there's going to be resources to help our families get through this sort of thing. Think about an unexpected funeral in your life right now. And then on top of it, if you speak out about the fact that your family member was killed by an illegal criminal, now, of course, you're attacked for being racist. And all of these things happen in a way that leaves a lot of angel families afraid and unwilling to come forward and talk. And so we really have to give kudos to these angel moms and dads and brothers and sisters who step up and come forward and talk about this, because it's really a very hard thing to do, not only emotionally for us as a family, but the hate that is directed towards us by our fellow Americans. And all we're trying to do is give a warning signal out to you that it's time to be aware of what's happening at our borders. And, I started doing this in 2015, and the year after my son was killed. And think about what's happened since then. And think about the fact that a lot of people just don't take heed of people like me who come forward and talk to you about it. I have nothing to gain. I have nothing to lose. There's nothing worse than losing a child. I have nothing to lose by coming forward and speaking to you. I've already lost the ultimate thing in my life. So I'm doing this to try and help Americans understand the inner workings of our federal government and the things that they aren't paying attention to that they should, or that they purposely are allowing that they shouldn't. Let me just go over a few other families here. We've got Michelle Root from Iowa. Her daughter Sarah was killed on January 31st, 2016 in Omaha by a drunk driving illegal alien going 75 miles an hour who ran into her daughter's car sitting at a red light. This was Sarah's graduation night. She had just graduated from college with a 4.0 grade point average. Her life was just ripped out from underneath her. You've got Agnes Gibney in California. Her son Ronald was shot to death by an illegal alien on April 27, 2002 in California. He did, the illegal in Agnes's case, did spend time in jail. He had a release date in 2020. And thank goodness our contacts at ICE, we were able to get confirmation that he was in fact immediately deported when he was released from prison there in California. However, is he back? That's the question. That's a question that a lot of us have when our perpetrators are the killers of our children and our loved ones are deported. We know that some of these people are back 15, 20, 30 times. Vicki Lyon in Florida. Her daughter Nikki was killed in Florida on November 17, 2001 by a drunk cocaine-fueled illegal who ran into her car. Now, her daughter Nikki left two children behind, and they were both severely injured in this accident. And Vicki, the grandmother, Nikki's mom, ended up raising her two grandchildren. You know, we don't stop to think about the aftermath of, you know, if a victim has children and, you know, what happened to those children. The family is destroyed. Laura Wilkerson in Texas, her son Josh was brutally murdered by an illegal classmate on November 16, 2010. This illegal classmate really wanted Joshua's truck. And so he ended up talking Josh into giving him a ride home from school. And he ended up beating Josh with a closet rod and choking him to the point where he had bubbles coming out of his mouth and his nose, and then letting him go and letting him breathe a little bit and then choking him again. Anyway, he finally ended up killing him after torturing him, and then hogtied him, threw him in the back of his own pickup, and took him out to a field and poured big gasoline on him and set him on fire. And that young man is still in prison there in Texas. Think of that story and think about what Laura went through finding out what happened to her son. I mean, some of these people who come from other countries just have no conscience, the things that they do. And you know, this is of like a cartel mindset, that kind of a crime. How could you do that to another human being? Seriously. It's just sick. Steve Ronnebeck here in Arizona, his son Grant was murdered. Basically, he was assassinated. He was working at a QT store, and it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. This was on January 25th, 2015. And this illegal walked in with a handful of change, threw it on the counter, wanted 2 packs of cigarettes, and Grant was counting the money, and he wasn't counting it fast enough. So the illegal took a gun out and just assassinated. It was shot him point blank in the head. Then walked around the counter, stepped over Grant's dead body and grabbed more cigarettes and then walked out of the store. Come to find out, this illegal had kidnapped a woman and held her hostage for about a week, was injecting drugs in this woman and raping her. And he was found guilty of that, but he was released back out into the streets of Mesa, Arizona, and then ended up committing this heinous crime against Grant Ronnebeck. Grant was 21 years old. You know, I mean, and this is what really makes me mad. What about the dreams of my son, Brandon? What about the dreams of Grant? What about the dreams of Joshua? These politicians always talk about the dreamers who are coming from other countries, and they deserve a life, and they deserve free college, and they deserve jobs. You know, our sons and our daughters and our loved ones deserve every bit of all of those dreams as American citizens. Sue Krentz here in Arizona, her husband Rob Krentz, they own a ranch down by the border here in southern Arizona. He was murdered on March 27, 2010. His the illegal alien who killed him is still on the run. I'm going to go back to Steve Ronnebeck. So Grant was killed in 2015, January of 2015. Steve finally had justice of December of 2022, just this past December. This disgusting illegal was finally sentenced to prison, and he's been put away. This is how long it takes to get justice. So from 2015 to 2022 is how long it took, 7 years. Chris Stansbury in Iowa, his daughter Tiara was killed in an apartment fire in Los Angeles that was intentionally set by an illegal criminal on June 13, 2016. He was found guilty, and it killed many other people in that apartment fire. And he ended up, he's in prison now, serving a sentence. You've got, so, I mean, I've just got a list, pages and pages of victims, and I could go on and on and on about this, but I wanted to kind of personalize some of these stories to, I've got a very close angel mom, Cayenne Michael, who is now a state representative in Florida, and she's actually there in Texas today, her and her husband, Bobby, with Governor DeSantis, speaking about illegal immigration. But Cayenne actually put actions behind her words, and she ran for office and got voted into the Florida state as a representative, and she sponsored this incredible illegal immigration bill and had the full support of Ron DeSantis, and it was passed, and I'm so proud of this woman. And her son, Brandon Michael, was killed in Florida by a hit and run. Actually, he hit and got out and stood there and watched their son Brandon die, and then tried to claim when the police showed up that he wasn't driving the vehicle, but he was the only person there. And thank goodness there was witnesses to collaborate and back this up. But they lost their beautiful son Brandon, and this happens, way too often, these DUI situations. But Cayenne got this bill put together that would make it a crime to cross into Florida, across state lines, and be transporting illegals in your vehicle. Made E-Verify a huge thing there in the state of Florida. And when you stop and think about it, employment is the big draw. And so E-Verify is a huge thing, and I think every state needs to enact that and enforce it, and find employers who employ these people. If they don't have work, they're going to leave, and they're going to go back home where they belong. And so these are the types of incentives and the types of laws that we have to put into place state to state across this country. So that was my little touch on illegal immigration and kind of from an angel mom standpoint. And what we do as an organization is we provide emotional support. And I reach out to some of these mothers when I'm able to get contact information for them. And I usually wait a month or two, because I know firsthand what that first month or two is like after you've lost your child so suddenly. And we reach out, and, there's many organizations that are out there that, parade illegal families out on a stage or, want their name to be brought up in interviews when the angel moms and angel dads are talking to the news stations. And that's why I decided to start Angel Families and Angel Moms, because it needs to be organic, and it needs to be from the heart, and it needs to be from people who've really experienced it, not somebody who's just decided they want to start this organization and get a ton of donations and use the money in ways that really don't help angel families. So long backstory on all of that. But as you can see, my dogs like to check in with me. They keep me company throughout the day. Anyway, I'm so proud of Sandra and Walter down there at the border and getting involved in this whole border situation. And it's important for all of us as Americans to listen to these different candidates and see what type of a message they're going to put out there about what their border protection plan is going to be about. because obviously the administration we have in place right now is not about it. They're about supporting the NGOs and the United Nations and the Soros-backed NGOs, all these people who have a stake in this game, these open borders for all nefarious reasons. Oh, anyway. So I wanted to talk about how many of y'all are going to see the movie Sound of Freedom. I got my tickets the other day. I'm going to go see it July 3rd. I'm really kind of scared because I don't like violent movies, and I surely don't like violence against children. So I'm kind of apprehensive about this, but I'm definitely going to go see it so that I have more to talk about. But let's talk about that after we come back from the break. I have to do a commercial break, so we're going to do that, and then we'll come back and talk about the Sound of Freedom. Welcome back. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of video watching. There's a lot of interviews that they are doing. Jim is doing from this movie, The Sound of Freedom. And like I said before the break, I've got tickets to go see it July 3rd. And I've been trying to find out as much as I can so that I'm prepared ahead of time, because this is a pretty scary thing. But this morning I was watching a video, and unbelievably, the statistics that they're giving out is that it was with Candace Owens, that 30 million people are enslaved across this world, and that of that 30 million, about 8 million of them are children, either for sex slavery, slave labor, or organ harvesting. And I didn't realize that this organ harvesting, you hear about so many things that are just unfathomable to think is going on in a modern day world like this. And I've heard about this sort of thing in the past, but like so many other things, you're just kind of like, yeah, is that the truth? You just don't even know anymore what's the truth and what's just disinformation being thrown out there by the Democrats. But human trafficking is real. And, Ben Bergwin, he's with One America's Voice. He actually went down there and did the whole trek through the Darien Gap. He's an amazing journalist and actually brings us the truth straight from the source. I mean, you hear so much about the Darien Gap, but he actually did this. And he was going through, I believe it was with some Columbia military, so he was protected. But they were talking to people along the way, and he was talking to this one man who was saying, they're kidnapping these children out of the Darien Gap for organ harvesting. And I'm like, wait, what? This stuff is real? And I was doing some research after hearing that. But then when all these trailers and interviews have been coming out about the Sound of Freedom, actually confirming that this is truly happening in this world. And Jim was saying on an interview, I think it was with Steve Bannon, that a barrel of oil is worth $77 and a barrel of body parts is worth $77,000. That this is really happening, folks. And, when you think about, if there's 30 million people enslaved and there's 8 million children, and, all of those, and I know this goes on in China, where they do the organ harvesting, and these are on, live slaves that they have in these slave camps. I printed something out. I don't know if I have it here, but it was about the cost. I mean, it was something like $150,000 for a kidney, $175,000 for a set of lungs on the black market. And there was a guy right here in the United States on the East Coast who was recently arrested and convicted and put into jail. He had been running a organ harvesting business for many, many years. And how sad to think that these children are just cut up like this, and even probably women and men too. There's so many people who are missing. But think about, this is almost like a modern day Holocaust going on against our children in the world. And how many people are just turning a blind eye to this and not realizing the extreme amount of people? We've got people in California whose ancestors never experienced slavery. California was not a slavery state, and they're demanding reparations when you've got modern day slavery going on right now, which, I've talked about this for many, many months, many years actually, about the fact these people who come over the border and are enslaved to the cartel and coming here to work, and the majority of their paycheck is going to pay off their debt to the cartel. So it's modern day slavery going on right now. How is this going to affect our country when in, 5, 6, 10 years, these people say, hey, my life has been nothing but a life of slavery, and the United States enabled this by having open borders and enabled these cartel members to do this to me and my family. And so we're suing you for reparations now. It's a possibility that it's going to happen in the future. The disgusting, sick things that this administration is allowing to happen at the borders. But, and I think it's pretty funny when you stop and think about it. In 2018, activists and advocates were calling it crimes against humanity. Over 1,475 unaccompanied children lost. Rightfully so. Any child lost is a reason to stand up and scream and yell, which nobody's doing right now. But this was under Trump. And in actuality, that 1,475, either the sponsor family or the sponsor here in the United States didn't answer the call when they called to check in on the child. And so they were put on a list that they hadn't confirmed, what was going on with that child. So, and again, you had these activists and these advocates screaming and yelling. But now with over 85,000 lost unaccompanied minors, where are these activists and advocates? And where's AOC doing a little photo op for her campaign, at a chain link fence with, a vision of 85,000 children back there? This is just unbelievable what is happening. And Health and Human Services and so many organizations within the federal government really have a lot of answers to give out. In 2016, too, of the unaccompanied minors placed under Obamacare, 4,000 went unaccompanied for in 2016. And these are all from statistics I gathered from some of the Border Patrol sites and unaccompanied minor issues. So 152,000 plus unaccompanied minors crossed our borders during the fiscal year 2022. I actually think it's much higher than that, much higher than that. And when you put in 2021 with it too, yeah, I can't even imagine. So the other sickening thing that I found out, listening to these interviews about the Sound of Freedom and these interviews that they're doing, is the United States is the biggest consumer of child sex and child porn. The United States is the biggest consumer of child porn and child sex. This was like a punch in my gut. Seriously. And Mexico is the biggest producer of child porn and the biggest producer of the children that make this child porn. So child sex. They're the biggest producer. This is just sickening to me. And like I said, I don't like to watch violent movies. And of course, violence against children is just going to kill me. And I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. I may probably need to take an anti-anxiety medication before I go. I have to find somebody who has one. But I think it's important that we become uncomfortable. We need to become uncomfortable. We need to feel this, and we need to have that uncomfortable feeling so that we stand up and say something for these children that this is happening to. If we don't stand up, who's going to stand up for them? And everybody just wants to keep sweeping this under the rug. They had so many of these things, Pizzagate and all this stuff that was going on, and it's a conspiracy theory, and these people are crazy, and they don't know what they're talking about. They're just kooks. This is going on. It may not be Pizzagate, but it's going on. These crimes against our children are going on. And we've got to do something to stop it. We have to. So maybe if you're watching, tell me in the comments if you've gotten tickets or if you plan to see this movie. Because I've got mixed messages from my friends and family. Some of them are saying, no, I'm not going to be able to see that kind of a movie. And others are like, yes, we need to be informed as Americans. We need to know this information. So maybe let me know if you're going to go see it. But all right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was how many of you watched Trump's speech at the Faith and Freedom event? That was a pretty interesting speech. I felt like you can see kind of a little change in him, but and let me just go with a backstory on all of this. In 2015, the Trump campaign got a hold of me and wanted me to speak at their first rally here in Phoenix, which I did. I spoke about my son and I spoke about illegal immigration. And trust me, I was 100% on board with that man because he had the backbone to stand up and talk about illegal immigration in this country and the crimes these people were committing. And so angel moms and angel families jumped on board because we finally had I guess he wasn't a politician at the time, but we finally had somebody involved in politics who was talking about it. We finally felt like, okay, here's somebody who hears us and understands the issue with illegal immigration. But, as time went on, he would call me and say, hey, Marianne, I need you at the White House to sit out on a round table with law enforcement and politicians and talk about the sanctuary city policies. And he would have us angel families come there many times to have us stand behind him when he was speaking about illegal immigration. And he was very sincere. He remembered all of us. He knew our children's story when he would talk to us. And that meant something to us because we were finally being acknowledged and we were being recognized. And as humans, that's what's important in life. Even if you're talking about your spouse or your children, to be able to say that you're acknowledged, your spouse hears you, your spouse listens to you, your kids listen to you. That's an important part of being human. So that meant something to us as angel families, that we did have somebody who was fighting for us and on our side. As time went on, and I don't know if many of you are aware, but I spoke at the 2016 RNC, and I was invited to speak at the 2020 RNC. And of course, it was in the middle of COVID. I flew back to DC. I taped my speech. I was the only person who was going to be speaking about illegal immigration. And the day that my speech was supposed to be shown, I had read this book, The Killing of Uncle Sam, and it talked about the Rothschilds. If any of you haven't read that book, or the Creatures of Jekyll Island, that's another one. But The Killing of Uncle Sam, it's like a $20 book. You can get it on Amazon. And it really explains in detail the Federal Reserve and how it came to be, but the Rothschilds' history, leaving England and going to Africa and really stealing all the resources and riches of that continent, taking all the gold, taking all the diamonds, enslaving people, and what they've done throughout history, and then coming here and forming the Federal Reserve, and how the Federal Reserve finances both sides of any war. So that doesn't matter what happens, who wins or who loses in a war. The Federal Reserve is always going to be making money. The Federal Reserve is not a governmental entity here in the United States, even though they're called the Federal Reserve. I had been reading that book. And so I was on Twitter the morning that my speech was going to be shown at the 2020 RNC. And I started reading this thread, and it was talking about the Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve. And I got 5 or 6 down, and I'm like, yeah, people really need to be aware of this. And so I retweeted the tweet, not realizing that it was like 60 threads long. And it started getting a little going out in the weeds at the tail end of this thread, but I didn't look all the way down. And so the Daily Beast did this huge hit piece on me. Anti-Semitic angel mom is going to be speaking at the RNC tonight. And that was the night that Melania's speech was going to be shown. That was the night that Mike Pompeo was speaking with a picture of Jerusalem behind him. So they picked the perfect title for me. And because of one tweet, I'm suddenly anti-Semitic, which was absolutely ridiculous. And, I'm getting calls from the White House. You need to, post a retraction, an apology. which I put on Twitter, which made things 10 times worse. And then I immediately got a call saying, we're removing your speech from the RNC, which really surprised me because the night before that at the RNC, they were talking about cancel culture. And here they were playing right into the hands of the cancel culture people and canceling an angel mom instead of standing up to them and saying, you know, we know this woman. We know for a fact that this isn't who she is in her heart. And what's interesting is a Jewish rabbi did an hour-long video. He went through all of my social media and said, I cannot believe what they did to this woman, which he was able to get on my Twitter and go through it all before I made it private because I was getting death threats and the most vile, disgusting messages sent to me and tweets put out to me that I finally had to put it private for a few days till the dust settled. But, you know, saying this woman is not an anti-Semitic. In fact, you know, she had things previously in her Twitter in support of Jerusalem. And so it just was interesting to me to watch this play out. And I was a part of Women for Trump. I had all of these bus tour things planned for that, you know, at the follow-up of the RNC and the Arizona GOP, and things were going on here. And immediately I was getting calls from everybody canceling me. Everything on the bus for Women for Trump was canceled. Anything with the Arizona GOP here in Arizona, you know, the chairman at the time, Kelly Ward, everything was canceled over a tweet, over a retweet, actually. And so that really made me start questioning, who are these people you have surrounding you, Trump? And I'm still questioning him today. Because, you know, when you keep people like Lindsey Graham, the snake Lindsey Graham, in your inner circle and talk about him like he's the best thing since sliced bread, and Mitch McConnell, and, you know, Sean Hannity, some of the things he said about him, but he's, you know, Trump still has him kind of in the loop of things. Jason Miller, I mean, different people that he has surrounding him making bad decisions. That kind of still resonates with me after what happened to me, to just be completely wiped out and have nobody in that administration ever want to talk to me again. And let me tell you, when I would get a phone call from DC, the president needs you here, I would drop everything I was doing, cancel my plans, and rearrange my life around what the president needed me to do and to be there for him or attend a meeting. I missed my oldest grandchild's graduation from high school because they needed me in DC. You know, I dropped everything for that administration whenever they needed me to go to DC, whenever they needed me to talk or present something. The Women for Trump, same thing. So listening to him talk, I get who he is, but the sincerity and who he has surrounding him still has me worried, you know, as he's running again for office. He cuts the right people out and he leaves the nefarious people who I think are backstabbing him right there with him. And the other thing that really kind of resonated with me was his lack of accountability and basically saying, I have the right to do anything I want to do because I'm the president. And I mean, I don't think he should be charged under the Espionage Act. I think this is a witch hunt. I think they've gone after him for the wrong reasons. But I think what the American people would really like to see from this man is a little humility and to be able to say, you know, I shouldn't have done that, you know. And I think a little bit of that was happening because, you know, they were working with the FBI to get this stuff back to them. But I don't know. I just think his ego and how he thinks about himself is really getting in his way. You know, and then you got to worry about, will it be 4 more years of lawsuits and challenges? I mean, what he accomplished in the 4 years that he was in the White House was amazing. Amazing, considering that the ACLU had about 60 lawsuits already written up and were ready to file the minute he was sworn into office, you know, because of what he had talked about on the campaign trail. which is what will happen again. And then of course you'll probably have impeachments and all that stuff going on. So what will he really be able to accomplish, and what will be done, for 4 years after he's sworn into office? What will really be done, and how will things be accomplished in this country? Can we afford that? That's the biggest question. Can this country afford that? After the damage the Biden administration has already done, my gosh, I mean, we're going to have an administration, a Republican administration in 2024, hitting the ground running and being ready to just start, correcting the damage and sewing the gaps and putting things right and putting the world on notice. Biden's not in charge anymore. So we're going back to, business as usual with the United States. And it's not going to be that you're walking all over us, taking advantage of us. Oh, and the Republican Party is so divided. That's what's so disheartening to me. And in Arizona, it's really bad. I mean, I'm thankful that we got rid of our chairman, Kelly Ward. She was really bad news and a very divisive woman. And I know Trump was really on her side and fought for her and really praised her and whatnot, but I don't think he knew the real Kelly Ward. And maybe he did, maybe that's the kind of people he likes. This is a big question mark in my head. I'm listening to Ron DeSantis today talk about the border, and I like the way the man talks. I like what he's done down in Florida. I like that he doesn't care about the blowback that he gets from the media, how he handles the media, and how he doesn't repeat himself 50 times when he's making a speech. And it's not about him, it's about us, and it's about what he's done, and it's about what he plans to do. It's going to be an interesting election cycle. It really, really is. But the GOP here in Arizona, oh my gosh, they've got this thing that they put out here in Maricopa County. It's called the Republican Briefs. And so lawmakers, statewide or federal, they've got a section that they can come in and say what they're doing. They've got announcements, and then they have, a section where PCs and Republicans can actually put a comment or, just state something out there. You can't even believe the infighting going on. Oh my gosh, the name calling, the infighting, what's happening at our LD meetings, legislative district meetings, the infighting with the precinct committee men and women. And it's all airing on these Republican briefs, and they're all going back and forth. And I'm just like, gosh, I feel like I'm in high school reading notes that are being passed around about, the popular group, the unpopular group. It's just crazy. And then you've got the Patriot Party of Arizona trying to, form a third party here. And Daniel McCarthy and Steve Daniels, who were two kooks, they were running it. And that was during the 2022 elections. And they had rhino signs, small signs that they were putting in front of all the candidate signs that were out on the streets on anybody that they didn't agree with, and blasting that out on the streets. They were showing up at different candidates, especially Carrie Lake's rallies and speeches that she was given at different places. And they were making themselves very vocal and being very disruptive. So they were the face of the Patriot Party of Arizona. And now they're trying to revive it, and they're trying to tell everybody Daniel McCarthy and Steve Daniels are out, and we have new leadership with the Patriot Party of Arizona. And they're really trying to pull a lot of the Republicans into this, which I just think is a huge mistake, because it's dividing the masses, and it's going to divide our efforts. And, we already had enough people leave and re-register as independents here in Arizona. Like in my district where I live and where I'm running, the Republicans have a slight advantage over the Democrats, very slight. But the independents, the registered independents in my district are more than the Republicans or the Democrats. So those are the people that we need to reach back out to and to bring them back. And this is a reason why the Republican Party, the platform, we have to go back to our conservative roots and what we're about. And we had a speaker. I think it was called her organization is called American Majority. She came and spoke at our legislative district meeting the other night and talked about ballot chasing is what the Democrats do here in Arizona. Ballot harvesting is against the law, even though we know the Democrats are doing it here in Arizona, especially Maricopa County. But especially at nursing homes and those types of places, that's what the Democrats are famous for here. But what the Republican Party is going to be concentrating on here in Arizona is ballot chasing. And I guess in the 2022 cycle, like 234,000 ballots that were mailed out to registered Republican voters never made it back. And so they're saying these are, 234,000 votes could have made a huge difference in the governor race and in many of the state level races, and even the federal races. So they talked about the fact that we've got to knock on these people's doors and say, you were mailed a ballot. Do you need help getting it to is it filled out? Is it sealed? Can I take it to the post office for you? Can I drop it off at a ballot box for you? Those are the types of things that the Republicans here in Arizona are going to start doing en masse. So we're just going to follow along with the Democrat playbook. And because I was a candidate and my candidate email, I don't know how I got on this list, but I started getting these emails from the Democratic chair here in Maricopa County. And I'm telling you what, folks, the day after the election, they were already gearing up for 2024, the day after the election. They're not of the Republican mindset like, well, we're done with this election. We need to take 6 months off now and rest and put our feet up and gather the strength for the next push. These people are fighting year round. They never stop. And this is really a lesson that we need to take from these people. And, the emails that I get, like, can we count on you for $5 a month reoccurring? Can we count on you for $10 a month? And, when you add up all of these people who aren't big donors, but if they're all donating $5 or $10 a month on a recurring basis, how much that adds up to for these Democratic candidates. I mean, in our small district here in LD9, we have 2 state representatives and then we have a state senator. And in our small little area, the 3 Democratic opponents in 2022 spent $1.5 million on their campaigns combined. For TV ads, for a state representative and a state senate, TV ads for a $2,000 a month job. I mean, they were unbelievable TV ads attacking us like there was no tomorrow. And of course, postcards that went out. It was January 6th in the background, and then our faces plastered in front, like we're all insurrectionists and we were involved in the whole January 6th deal. And to some extent, I think it worked, and it excuse me, it made people think that that's the type of people we were. But I ran my campaign on $30,000, and we were only behind by 10%. But the other interesting thing here in Maricopa County is the mail-in ballots obviously were a huge advantage for the Democrats, and so we knew when election day came that's when the Republicans were going to vote. And we knew there would be an uptick in the votes for us. But what's interesting, and I was at polling places throughout the day, and everybody was saying, wouldn't even talk to the Democrats. We're taking our golden tickets. Oh, we're voting for you. Oh my gosh, we're going to win. The numbers, the difference between us, the Democrats and the Republicans, never changed on election day, on in-day voting, in-person voting. The percentages never changed. The numbers, the separation between us stayed the same the whole time. That's why I know something crazy was going on here in Maricopa County, because there should have been a huge surge in votes for us. I got a tickle going on in my throat. So, and now looking at the record of these people and how they're voting, these three Democrats that won, it is absolutely insane. I mean, on a conservative level, I think one of the state House representatives, she's from a conservative voting standpoint, she's at maybe a 17.6. And it's just going to be very interesting, going up against her, because now these people, we were a new district formed, so none of us had any experience. We weren't incumbents or anything. And so now it's going to be an interesting fight this next go around, because they do have a record. And a lot of the things that she is fighting for, Lorena Austin, is things for illegals here in the state of Arizona. She has done not one thing for her American citizen constituents here in our district, and I'm sure that's happening all over the country. How is it down there in Texas? Let me see, Wendy. It's happening in Texas too, but you have to understand they're trying to get rid of the backstab and Lindsey Graham's on the local level too. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Wendy. There's too many Lindsey Grahams in this world, and there's a lot of it going on here on the state level. And what was interesting was so many of these. Carrie Lake had kind of put together like an Arizona First group of candidates. And, we kind of took a pledge of things that we were going to be working on and things that we were going to be fighting for. And, oh my gosh, Sandra's here.
Hey, y'all.
How you doing? How is it going down there?
It's fantastic. We've had a great time here in whatever city I'm in, Eagle Pass, with the DeSantis campaign. It has been a fantastic. He hit all of the knots. I mean, I fell in love with him even more today. So you heard it here, Simon Garcia. And look. I even got some time to speak with him. I got his autograph. We got that on video and stuff. So it's really been fantastic. It was a packed house. There was standing room only here at the BFW. He really touched on the key points. He brought out the stuff the personal stories here in Eagle Pass that need to get out. And my favorite part was that he said no more red tape. I cut through tons of red tape in Florida. We made sure that bridges that they were going to tell us was going to take over 6 months were built in 3 days.
Yes,
When the
that was
storms came
amazing.
through, and things like that. So listening to him say those things, to talk about the infrastructure and how important it is to not allow red tape to be the cause of us having the problems that we have, regardless of what it is, infrastructure, border security, things along those lines. So we were really just kind of blown away. Like Walter and I kept kind of like going like this the whole time he was speaking, like, yes. So it was great to listen to an actual leader and not have to listen to rhetoric. I think that was probably the other best talking point I could give, is that it wasn't all the name calling, it wasn't any of that nonsense. It was real truth about what he wants to do and how he's going to make a difference for the United States of America. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it wasn't about me. It was about us. It was about us as American people in our country, right? And
Yes.
and he didn't repeat himself 50 times. I was listening to him before I started the show.
That's
It,
true. He did not repeat himself 50 times.
yeah,
He was to the point. I love that. He was to the point. He was personal. He took questions. You could see him interacting. He made sure to try and talk to every single person before his entourage literally drug him off the stage. I had a couple minutes to talk to him, and I said, "Hey, all the rhetoric that Fox News tried to steal from what happened during the 2020 election, my team did that with $26,000." And he literally went like this. He goes, "Are you serious?" And so then I told him about some of the other stuff that we were doing in the 30 seconds that we got to speak. And he's like, "Keep doing what you're doing. I was told your name a lot of times today." So
yes.
that was we're making a difference, y'all.
By the way, I wanted to just tell you, you look beautiful today, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I just got my hair did.
Mm.
I didn't get to tell him.
There's just a sparkle in your eyes today. I like it.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we're being kicked out of the building now. But I did want to pop in really quick and say hello, and maybe on our way over to where we're meeting all the people that are here in town for lunch. Walter and I'll try and call back in just a couple of minutes. But we love you. You're doing a fantastic job, Marion. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good time.
You guys in a bit.
Okay. So happy that they got the opportunity to be down there. Yes. Oh, Simon, did you tell them that? Yeah, Sandra should be a VP candidate, shouldn't she? We need a change in this country. I don't even know where I was talking, what we were talking about. She just completely discombobulated me. But anyway, yeah, politics today, the Republican Party, there's so much that needs to happen. Oh, so much work to be had too, so much work to be done. So we're going to go to a commercial break again. I know that Sandra told me I have to do them every 30 to 40 minutes. I think I'm going to do the last commercial break now, and we'll just go straight through when we come back from the commercial break to the end of the show. So I will see you all back here in 3 minutes. Well, we're back, and it's the last 45 minutes of the show. I know I'm not as exciting as Sandra and Walter, but I'm trying my best, trying to have enough things to talk about this morning. So I don't know about you guys there in Texas or anywhere else in this country, but I'm telling you what, we're having a heat wave here in Arizona. We kind of were pleasantly surprised in May and June. Normally the beginning of June, it starts getting up in the 100-degree weather, and we kind of stayed in the lower to mid 90s, and it was kind of a nice break this year. And then all of a sudden it just heated up this last week. I think we're going to be up in about 110 degrees this whole next week, into 4th of July weekend. I'm like, oh, perfect timing when everybody wants to be outside. So, of course, we don't have the humidity that y'all have there in Texas. That's for sure. I would not be able to stand it. And it's a dry heat here in Arizona. That's why we're able to handle it so well. So, anyway, I'm so excited that Sandra and Walter are down there. Like I said, my angel mom friend, Kayam Michael, state representative, Florida Representative Kayam Michael, and her husband, Bobby, were there, traveled actually with Governor DeSantis on his plane from Florida, and going to talk about the immigration bill that she did sponsor, and that Governor DeSantis signed into law there. There are so many ways that so many of us can become active and help in our communities. And we're really kind of having a push here. I was amazed when I started getting involved on a legislative district level, and had heard on Steve Bannon's show, the WarRoom, the importance of being a precinct committee man or woman. And I thought, okay, I'm going to look into this kind of stuff. And so I started going to our legislative district meetings. But what was so amazing was, like, my precinct was completely full with precinct men and women. There was the maximum in my precinct. And but I was only one there from our precinct at the meeting, and I wasn't even a precinct man or woman. And I'm like, and so I started noticing month after month when I was going to the meetings, I was the only one signing in my precinct as a guest. And I thought, this is really weird. So I said, well, I want to sign up to be a precinct man or woman. And they said, well, we don't have any openings. And so I signed up. And so the chairman of our legislative district said, you know what? I'm going to get a hold of some of these people and see if they'll step down, because, we've got active people who want to do something. Come to find out, there's one guy who had himself and his wife and 3 of his kids. He had proxies for the other 4. And he'd show up to the Maricopa County meetings and the state meetings, and basically had 5 votes. And this is how it was legislative district wise. It was like unbelievable. And so I started having conversations that we need to get rid of these precinct men and women who aren't active, and we need to really start making a push to bring more people who want to become more involved. I didn't know anything about these meetings. I didn't even know that this was going on until I happened to hear about it on Steve Bannon's show. And I think, quite honestly, that it was a very well-kept secret here in Arizona. I don't know what it's like in other states, but especially here in Maricopa County, because Kelly Ward was insulated with all of these people who they wanted to be in there. And they wanted the people to have proxy votes because they needed to keep her circle of protection around her and continually vote her in and keep her in power. And so, I started asking some of my friends, have you ever heard about a precinct committee? No, what is it? So I ended up having a meeting at my house, and I actually had friends come from Payson, which is like an hour and a half away up in the mountains, and some from down in Santan Valley, and ended up coming here, and we had a little meeting about what to do to be signed up. And I actually had about 7 people sign up to be precinct men and women in their legislative districts, and got them involved. And so I've kind of been trying to put a push out on my Facebook and different times when I talk to people about the importance of getting involved. And this is your first step. And this makes you aware of so many things, because like the city of Mesa where I live, they're having some meetings now, and it's the 2050 plan. And, a questionnaire went out. I happened to find it by happenstance while I was searching around on the web, happened to find the um, link to the questionnaire that they had, which of course they were sending out to a specific, uh, you know, group of people because they wanted the answers to be what they wanted the answers to be. So I thought, it's time to get a bunch of Republicans involved and just really kind of swing this pendulum the other way and kind of upset what they think Mesa looks like and what Mesa wants. We need to change the narrative here in Mesa. And so we got that link out in our legislative district, and now they're starting to have meetings, and we're really pushing for people to get to those meetings and have their voices heard. And we need, as patriotic Americans, we need to encourage our fellow Americans to get involved. And I keep telling people, this legislative district meeting is once a month for about 2 hours. And whether you want to become a precinct man or woman, a PC, even get on that level, or if you just want to come as a Republican to a meeting and hear from other people who feel the same way you do about this country and the direction that we're going in our city and our state and our county and all the policies that are happening, you deserve to give 2 hours of your time to learn more about what's happening and be an informed citizen, right? That's the biggest problem that I'm finding is people are uninformed, uneducated, and why don't people care more? Why? Because they make things like the economy a problem to where people really have to worry about if they're working, if they have a job to provide for their family, if they're going to have to get a second job to be able to afford their rent or their house payment and to put food on the table for their families. And they always have enough outside sources and things that will worry us and take up our time and beat us down and make us not want to even pay attention to what's happening. Bury your head in the sand and just survive within your little family circle and leave it at that. And, watching what's happening here just in my town of Mesa, Arizona, we have a Republican mayor, believe it or not, who endorsed the two Democratic House representatives and the Democratic Senate candidate in the 2022 elections. He went completely off the rails and was endorsing all of these Democratic candidates. And I always had a gut feeling about him, and I always tell people, listen to your gut feeling about people. I always had a gut feeling about this man that he just wasn't who he said he was. He just wasn't the person who I thought he was. So after that happened, and I found out that he had endorsed the Democratic opponents for us Republicans who are running for office, I just completely lost all respect for this man. Because it's like, why are you even calling yourself a Republican? Why are you registered as a Republican? What is that about? Why aren't you just registered as an independent, or B, a Democrat, which you really are? Quit beating around the bush and quit playing some game to get elected as a Republican mayor, because, Mesa was a very conservative town. Kind of demographics are kind of changing, but why? So at the beginning of May at the Mesa Police Department, they have a fallen officers event every year. And my son was a police officer, so he's honored at that meeting. And so there was 4 speakers this year. And of course, the Mayor Giles was one of them, Giles. And when he went up to speak, I just looked down at my phone and scrolled through Facebook the whole time he was speaking. And my daughter's afterwards, she's like, Mom, did you even look at him? He was looking over at you several times when he was speaking. And I said, no, I have no respect for that man. And to think that when he first got up there, he said, this is the event that I look forward to coming to every year. Really? You look forward to coming to a fallen officers memorial? That's the event you look forward to coming to every single year? the guy's an idiot. But yeah, so and then you look at the city council and what's happening there, and people have to pay attention to local politics and what's happening. You have to really get down into the nitty gritty. We voted this girl in, this mother in, to the Mesa School Board, and she's doing an amazing job, just an amazing job. But she's about the only reasonable voice and only conservative voice on the Mesa School Board, and it's been very hard. Matt Salmon, who was a U.S. congressman from Arizona, he was state representative before that, and he was a U.S. congressman from Arizona, and he was running for governor against Kari Lake, and his daughter is on the Mesa School Board, and it's amazing to hear of how she votes and sides with the Democrats. And Matt Salmon was running for governor. Things weren't going too well for him. He had gone down to Mar-a-Lago and asked Trump for his endorsement, didn't get it, and Trump ended up endorsing Kari Lake, and of course that pissed Matt Salmon off, and so he kind of went off the rails against Kari Lake and was siding with Karen Robson, who was running against Kari Lake too for governor. And it just really made me sad to think that this man who had me come into his home and talk to him and his wife when he was planning to run, and what he was going to do about the border. And I really felt like this is a good conservative man, and to watch things transpire and watch him end up being the non-conservative that a lot of people told me that he was really a sad thing. But his daughter's on the Mesa School Board, and so watching her do the same thing, it's like people really need to pay attention and listen and watch to what they're telling you about themselves. It doesn't take too much to figure it out. And if you listen to your gut and trust your gut and know the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with, and the kind of people that you want to elect to represent you, it's very important to hear these candidates speak. It's not something that you can just call your neighbor or call your family and say, okay, who you voting for? Who should I be voting for on this ballot? I had a granddaughter who voted for the first time in the 2022 election. And she said, who should I vote for? And I said, okay, well, we need to sit down and talk about these people. And you need to make that decision on your own. You don't need to vote for these people because I'm voting for them. You need to vote for who you think is going to represent you as their constituent, and who have the same values that you do. And this is so important in this country right now. We don't have the right representatives who are representing their constituents and voting the way their constituents would want. I spoke at a event that Chad Wolf was here a few weeks ago, and it was about obviously illegal immigration. But I was saying to the people there, we the people, when was the last time that you felt like your representative spoke for you, like had the same values that you did in their voting? When was the last time you heard from your representative asking your opinion about some upcoming bills that were happening, and taking a survey or showing up at your LD meeting to say, hey, I need your input. This bill's coming up. And nobody raised their hand. But I said, when was the last time you heard from your representative for money for their campaign? And everybody's hands went up. You hear from those people when they want money from you, but you don't hear from them when they should be needing your input on how to vote on things. And yes, they talk about what they stand for, and those are the values that people vote for when they're voting for these people to represent them. But things change, and things come up that may be an important bill that wasn't an issue when you were running your campaign. And so now you need to go back to your constituents and you need to check in with them and say, okay, this isn't anything we discussed when I was running. How do you guys feel about this sort of thing? We, the people, we've lost our voices. And that's the most disheartening thing in this country. That is the number one thing that people talk about when I say, what is your biggest concern and what do you think needs to be changed in this country? Our elected officials need to be listening to us. They don't. And that's the sad reality of things. And, why we need more people. I mean, Robert Scantleberry, who is running for state senate in my legislative district, and Kathy Pierce, Russell Pierce's sister, who was running with me for the 2 House seats. We were at all of our LD meetings, talking to them. They know that we're going into this with the mindset that we're going to be representing them, and they're going to hear from us every month. We're going to be there. We're going to talk about things. And this is why I keep telling them it's so important to bring more people in who aren't PCs. Come to your legislative district meeting. You don't have to get that involved to become a PC, but get there. Hear what your representatives have to say. Find out what the Republican Party is doing to try and right the ship. Find out what you can do as a volunteer, maybe not on a precinct committeeman level, but find out what you can do to help these people, how you can help these candidates, how you can have a home meet and greet when these candidates are running, help gather signatures for them to get on the ballot. There's so many things that can be done on a volunteer basis. And so many people are clueless about this. But I was really, it made me so happy. Not this last LD meeting, but the month before. I kept looking at this guy at the meeting thinking, gosh, he looks familiar to me. And he came over after the meeting and introduced himself. It was a friend from high school. And he said, yeah, I just signed up to be a precinct committeeman. And so I'll be seeing more of you at these meetings. And when I was at the county meeting in January, I saw several high school classmates there. And it just did my heart good to know that there's some people who are getting involved. And I know the Arizona politics is kind of foreign to you guys there in Texas. I know when I talk to Sandra and Walter and they are spouting off all these names and I'm like, whoa, wait, who's that? Who's this? Who's that? It's funny how, because you know so much about what's going on in your own situation that you think if you name a name, everybody's going to know who you're talking about. But I think there's similarities in every state and what's happening on every level. So I am just trying to do what I can. And again, I'm going to be running. And if any of y'all want to support me, it's at MendozaForArizona.com. I haven't announced yet, but I'm going to be signing my intent to run probably in the next couple weeks and start the push for getting signatures to get on the ballot. That's always the fun part, especially when it's 110 degrees outside and we're door knocking. We should have done our intent to run weeks ago and been out there when it was in the low 90s. But hindsight, right? Let's see. All right, what do y'all want to talk about next? Let's see. RNC cowards. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if you've all have seen lately. The CBP enforcement statistics for fiscal year 2023 came out. I was really shocked at some of these totals, which of course I believe are completely lower than what they really are. So the fiscal year 2023 runs from October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. So far, and we're in June, we're not even to September yet, but so far, the total enforcement actions by CBP are 2,096,346. That's in, wow, October, November, December, January, March, April, May, June. That's in 8 months, over 2 million, which I still believe it's more than that. Let me see. So the arrests of individuals with crime convictions or those wanted by law enforcement, 13,370 in this fiscal year so far. That's crazy to me. I printed up something else. Here it is. So I ran across a report too. Chris Christie said Trump is afraid to debate him. Oh my gosh! Don't even get me started on Chris Christie, Simon. Please. That dude has got to go away. Oh, this is going to be a crazy cycle from now until 2024. I mean, listening from all of these candidates, and I'm telling you, I am leaning more and more towards Ron DeSantis than I ever have. And I mean, I was a Trump diehard, trust me. But Chris Christie is like the bullied kid on the playground who, does anything, cries and kicks and throws a tantrum in order to get attention. And I just have no respect for the man, there's just something about him that doesn't set right with me. I can't even put my finger on it. But and the polls are showing it. But I think that the two candidates that everybody's going to have their eyes on are Trump and DeSantis. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a debate. They talked about the RNC having a debate with all the candidates. Whew, that's going to be some TV watching, isn't it? The mudslinging that's going to go on there. But it'll be interesting to see who makes it, past that mark in order to be on the debate stage. But we got some time in front of us, and it's going to get nothing but interesting from here on out, I'm telling you. He's the Duff, designated ugly fat friend. Really, Simon? Oh, geez. It doesn't even have anything to do with his weight. It's just his character and his way about him and the things that he says. And I love the fact that when he started attacking Trump, that, he was booed from the audience. It's funny because some of these others can go after Trump and they don't get booed. So it's pretty interesting. You just got flagged by Facebook for saying that. Oh my gosh. You're a bully, Simon. Oh, yeah. And then you got to wonder if Biden's going to debate anybody or if he's just going to sit in his basement, if they're going to keep him insulated in the psych ward and only let him out when he's got enough medication to not trip over something or say something ridiculous. But, and then you got to think, okay, so who are we going to see on that debate stage? Will there be a debate between Biden or the Democratic nominee? And would it be Trump? Would it be DeSantis? As sure as heck isn't going to be Chris Christie. But I think the thing that we need to be watching for too is I think there's going to be something's going to happen in the Democratic Party. And I think that there's a reason why Gavin Newsom's becoming more visible. Is there going to be an old switcheroo? Going to get Gavin Newsom in there and Biden out? I heard some rumblings, that Michelle Obama, if she ran and had Kamala as her running mate, that would be a shoo-in. I just don't see that happening. I don't know. I think it'd be a big mistake for Michelle Obama to get into it. I know they think that she's just like a shoo-in, but I don't think America's ready for that. What do y'all think? I just don't see it. One person who really surprises me is JFK. No, Robert Kennedy Jr. He's really impressed me. The only thing that really worries me about him is the red flag laws. And rightfully so. They've got a different opinion about guns and stuff in that family. But he reminds me of the Democratic Party when it was sane. his thoughts and processes on things. And I love how they're going after him like he's a conspiracy theorist, because he's anti-vax and all of the things that he's outspoken on. But the man has a lot of valid points. And I think, of course, he said he would never do this, but I think it would be like a great situation to have a Republican presidential candidate and a Democratic vice presidential candidate and have them run together. That would just knock the world on its butt, wouldn't it? It would really be something to think about. And maybe it's just time to get rid of political parties and just have people run and talk about what they stand for and let people vote for them. And then maybe there wouldn't be so much fraud. I don't know. It's just become too divided and too it's identity politics, at its finest. He'd open borders and grant amnesty. Do you really think so, Wendy? I didn't get that for him because different times when I'd heard him talk, he's talked about the sovereignty of our country and the fact that we need, and maybe there's other interviews that he's done that he said this sort of thing, and enlighten me. Ted Kennedy's immigration bill is killing us now. Yeah, that's the truth. I'll have to look into that more about Robert Kennedy, because the one interview that I heard him talk about it was more like, the sovereignty of our country and we need the borders and we need to fix the immigration system. So I will have to look into that. Speaking of that, I just want to talk about, this was reported on July 7th, 2022 by former Border Patrol Chief Ron Vidioli. He was on Fox News, and he was talking about this. Crimes committed by illegals surged in 2021 after declining from years prior. So illegals committed, and know that these statistics are a lot lower than what's really happening, folks. Trust me. But illegals committed 1,178 assault and domestic violent crimes in 2021, which represents a 400% increase from 2020, of which there were 208. 60 homicide or manslaughter convictions in 2021, a 1900% increase from 2020. Now, the key word here is convictions, because these are actual cases. Remember what I said earlier in the show, that Grant Ronnebeck's killer, it happened in 2015 and he wasn't convicted until 2022. So it takes years for some of these things to happen. And a lot of these illegals, like, let me just tell you something before I go on here. A lot of these dreamers that are part of the dreamer group, DACA, first of all, it was formed illegally by Obama back in the day, but the DACA program was so full of fraud that, these kids signed up for it, and they were they never had background checks on these kids and their parents and whatnot. But in the DACA program, you were allowed, I think it was 3 misdemeanor crimes, and then you'd be thrown out of the program. And we started seeing statistics and in talking with ICE officials when we were during the Trump administration, when we were very close with them and they were keeping us informed of what was happening. A lot of those DACA participants, when they were committing felonies, they were having backroom deals with the defense attorneys and the judges, and they were reducing the felonies to misdemeanors so that they wouldn't be thrown out of the DACA program. Because if you had a felony, you were thrown out. And mind you, some of these dreamers, as they were accepted into the DACA program, already had felonies on their record or had 1 or 2 or 3 misdemeanors. Even if they had been caught for shoplifting, they never should have been allowed into that program, in my opinion. If you're a criminal, if you've done something, we don't want that type in our country. So that's the biggest problem that I have with it. And there's a huge percentage of them that shouldn't even be a part of that because of the fact that they've committed felonies, had them reduced to misdemeanors, and then they're just kind of ignored. Like they don't even bring these cases forward. They're given a slap on the wrist and they're just kind of poo-pooed away because they don't want these type of statistics out there and people to become wise to the fact that you've got criminals rampant in the DACA program. Can't have that kind of information out there. But so convictions and actual crimes being committed are two different things. Keep that in mind. They're not even talking about, so the 60 homicide or manslaughter convictions in 2021, a 1900% increase from 2020, a 1900% increase of convictions. That isn't talking about actual crimes that were committed. These are just people who've been convicted of them, which could take, as I told you, 7 years to happen. DUI convictions rose 347% from 364 in 2020 to 1,629 in 2021. Let me tell you, it's way higher than that. Way higher than that. It's a constant situation here in Arizona, DUI offenses by illegals. Possession or trafficking drug convictions rose 453% from 386 in 2020 to 2,100 in 2021. So convictions are such a small percentage of each of these crimes committed in today's society where criminals are celebrated rather than convicted, and especially illegal criminals. We all know that. We know what's happening in these big cities. And a lot of times when these crimes are committed and they're reported, and of course, they'll never talk about their immigration status. But if that tidbit of information comes out in a report, then of course the report is buried and you'll never hear about it again. U.S. Border Patrol apprehended 10,763 criminal non-citizens in 2021, which is an increase of 300% from 2020. And that means that they were apprehended at the border and they were looked up and they were found to be criminals in their own country. And so they apprehended them. In the fiscal year 2022, which lasted until September 30th, 2022, a total of 7,253 criminal non-citizens had been arrested. So my big question is, of the 10,763 in 2021 and the 7,253 in 2022, how many of those were deported? Your guess is as good as mine. Under this administration, God only knows what happened to them, and then you've got an increase of all of these people crossing into our country, coming from the terrorist watch list, and also from countries that China, countries that we normally wouldn't see a lot of people getting admitted into this country. And then you've got things that I was doing some research on a couple of weeks ago was the visa statuses. When I was at that event with Chad Wolf and Rob Law, so when the Biden administration came in, the Trump administration had created a hotline for angel families, and it was called Voice. And we were able to call in there and keep track of the illegal who had committed a crime against or killed our loved one. And we were able to keep track of them through the legal system. And, we would call and say, hey, I need to get an update. Okay, so, they've been incarcerated. They would know if they were going to be paroled, when they were going to be released, and they would coordinate to go and pick them up from the local law enforcement agency and then deport them. So this was a way for our families to be able to know what was happening, because prior administrations, it was a guessing game. We never knew what happened to these perpetrators, these killers of our kids and our family members. So When the Biden administration came into effect, they immediately disconnected that phone for angel families and turned it into a hotline for illegals to call if they were a victim of human trafficking. Now, mind you, they could have paid $10,000 to be smuggled into the country, but the minute they got here, they could call this hotline and say, I'm a victim of human trafficking. And so then they start up a file at ICE, and then they're immediately given a number at USCIS, which is the United States Center for Immigration, USCIS. I can't remember what that stands for, but anyway, they're immediately given a number over there, and they're assigned a case there, and they start the process of getting them a U visa, an S visa, getting them situated in this country. But in the meantime, they immediately get a temporary work permit immediately. And so Mayorkas used to work at USCIS, and he was the Deputy Secretary of Department of Homeland Security under Obama. So he knew the inner workings of this all. And of course, once he became the secretary at DHS, he knew the little process that he wanted to put through. I spent 2 days on the phone talking with ICE officials and USCIS officials, got to the top dog at USCIS who was running this program, and finally got the lowdown of what was happening with all of this. So, but the reason I brought this up was because I was talking to Chad and Rob and saying, I think the topic that isn't talked about enough is these visa recipients who overstay their visa. Shannon Estes had her daughter Shaylee, who was dating a Russian who was here on a visa for school, and they got engaged to get married, and Shaylee broke up with him, and he didn't like that because his visa had expired and he needed to get married in order to be able to stay here. So he broke into Shaylee's apartment and murdered her, shot her dead. And I said, I don't think these overstayed visas are talked about enough. And told them about that whole thing that I just told you about, the USCIS and the work permits. And Rob says, yeah, I mean, that is working. That is how it's happening there. So Chad said we need to talk more about this in this roundtable discussion, that we had town hall discussion that we were having. And these are the types of things that the average American doesn't know that's going on. These are the types of things that I research, that I'm constantly looking and delving into and calling and questioning people, because we need to know every aspect of help and protections and guidance and freebies and taxpayer money. We need to know every aspect of what's happening in this country with illegal criminals and illegal aliens who are entering our country, and who this administration is absolutely aiding and abetting. So, yeah, my mind is constantly going because of all the statistics and all the things that I research, and the people that I talk to, and the things that I try to uncover and let people know what's happening. And unfortunately, the majority of Americans, it's like when I used to be on Fox News all the time talking about this, a 2 or 3 minute snippet. And I got to thinking, what good is this doing? People are listening to me and saying, oh, that poor woman, she lost her child. Oh my gosh. Hey, what's for dinner, honey? That's how quick of an attention span the American people have to this sort of thing. So we are about at the end of our time. I hope I haven't bored you all too much today. And try to come up with some interesting things to talk about. And just know that Sandra will be back tomorrow, and I'm sure she'll have a full update as to what's happened at the border with Ron DeSantis. Again, everybody needs to keep an open mind, listen to all of the candidates and presidential candidates. I really think that people need to give Ron DeSantis a try. And there's a lot of talk about the fact that, yeah, but the Bushes are backing him up and Soros is backing him up. be mindful of the fact that the Democrats and the liberals are really good at putting disinformation and misinformation out there for the American people to consume. Look at Russia hoax, Russiagate. Look at all of the things that they've done to us. And yet they have the nerve to say that we are the propagators of the misinformation on the internet. I honestly think that the Bushes and those types of people think, yeah, let's get Ron DeSantis as a candidate because Biden will be able to beat him. Don't underestimate DeSantis at all. I really think that everybody needs to give him a fair shake and give him a hard look. I'm signing off for now. Thank you for, I'm thankful I had this opportunity, and you all have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you soon on Sandra's show again. Bye-bye.